Hey guys, uh, I don't know what happened, but last week this did not record properly, and so super sorry. And so, anyways, I'll get it recorded and get it uploaded. Uh, Today, I'm going to talk about credit and debt and how that relates to your personal side and your business side. So let's just dive right in. Anytime you introduce credit to your situation, to any situation, you are inviting risk. A lot of risk, a little risk is up for debate and it's to each of us individually. Um, the credit is, and this risk, if you think about your business and how much money you owe, and you start to imagine how, if everything went wrong, if everything went bad, what, how would you pay for everything? How would you know, pay those truck notes, trailer notes, insurance? How are you going to pay those if you don't, uh, if everything goes bad? Now, you feel that little pit in the bottom of your stomach, the stuff that'll keep you up at night. When you owe money, that's the risk I'm talking about. You are just, you're taking it on. Good, bad, indifferent. Credit is equals risk. And you should be a little careful. Obviously, 100% cash position and 100% equity would be the very best, right? Everyone would probably agree with that. Um, but it may not be your reality or any of our reality. Um, I know I've worked to get trucks paid off, and when they do, finally start, we're thinking we're going to make money, and uh, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But anyways, but why do we use credit? Why is credit even a thing? If you had all the money in the world, all the money you could ever spend, would you ever use credit? You probably wouldn't. You just pay for it. It's less hassle. Instead of paying for the thing with the credit card and then paying the credit card, two transactions, why wouldn't you just simplify it and just make one? Uh, that's pretty obvious. So if you make enough money, you don't need credit. If you have enough credit, or if you have enough money, you just don't need credit. So let's make a little bit of a few calculations real quick, and this is just an internal exercise for you. How would it feel uh, if you had a 90% equity and just a 10% risk? If things go bad, it's kind of no big deal, right? What if you have 20% of your assets tied up, 30, 40, 50%? What if you're getting up there 80, 90%? Let's say you only come up with 10% down to buy some equipment and then it breaks down. You still have to pay the note. It can get a little scary. Uh, this entire thing is not good or bad or black or white. If I asked you, is a hammer good? Well, yeah. Is a hammer bad? Well, it could be used for bad, could be used for good. So it's mostly gray area. what I'm going to suggest. It's more of kind of like a good, better, best system. A lot of gradients, getting better or getting worse, depending on a lot of factors. Uh, yeah. Bruce, thanks for jumping on. This did not record last week, and so I'm just redoing it. Um, so yeah, apologies there. But but again, it all depends on your personal risk tolerance and to how that um, how that plays in. The worst type of debt you can get into is personal debt, consumer debt, anything that is a depreciating asset. The okay-ish, the middle ground that is maybe not the worst is assets that can at least produce cash flow to outperform their loss in value or their depreciation. And an example of that would be your truck, your trailer, um, that any equipment you can kind of offset that's supposed to at least make its own money. Um, and obviously, a better option than that are assets that are appreciating in value, going up in value rather than down in value. And the best, if there is such a thing as good debt, it would be debt on appreciating assets that also produce cash flow. Uh, but that would be the best. You buy a truck and you fast forward, whatever. You buy a brand new truck today, 2025, and whatever, you pay 200 grand. Just fast forward 10, 20, 30 years. What's that truck going to be worth? Not very much. I mean, if you really maintain it and everything, it may be worth whatever, 20 grand, or it might be worth scrap metal. So that's a depreciating asset. And so when we introduce debt into this equation, uh, it just opens us up for uh, for that risk. Uh, but most of us are in a situation where we need to use credit, and so we just want to be really smart about that, right? We want to be, um, it's very honest with ourselves and with our situation, and not get over optimistic and over leverage ourselves because we just want to stay in a good place that we know we'll make it. You got to stay in that state of confidence, not fear, excitement, not anxiety. Super important. Super fast here. Your personal credit score is is made up of multiple factors depending on who and what model they're using. There's thousands of different ways they calculate your credit score. But as a general rough 30,000 foot view of the situation, your payment history is going to be the largest contributor to what your um, credit score is. Next is going to be your utilization rate. If you have whatever $100,000 available and you use 99,000 of it, that's a high utilization rate versus you have $100,000 line of credit and you're down, maybe you don't owe any, then that's a zero utilization rate. And that would obviously be the best. That's because they see that you have credit available that you're not using versus you max everything out. You can see how that would make sense to them. And these two single-handedly, if you didn't do anything else but just paid attention to these two, you're going to be, 2/3 of the way there to keeping a positive um, personal credit score. Obviously, the length of history, the longer you've had credit and had it established, is better. Also, your credit mix. Do you have Do you have, they like to see a mix, mortgage, like a house loan, equipment. They don't want it all to be in credit cards or don't want it only a house. They like to see a mix just to show a balanced uh, way, or it proves that you can manage multiple types of risk or credit. But again, 100% of it depends on the model they use. Um, Hundreds of different ways that they calculate it, and each bank, each finance company has their own way of calculating. And so don't get too hung up on it. Uh, just know that if you'll make payments on time or early and you won't max everything out, you'll stay pretty good, is the point of that. The reason the personal side is important is even if you go down the trail and get your business credit score, uh, quite high, almost all are still going to require a personal guarantee. Um, until you've been in business maybe 10 years or so, have a lot of success behind you, your business entity does, banks, they're still going to want you to personally guarantee each line of credit or each thing you borrow money on. So I would encourage everyone to get your business credit also positive. Get it as good as you can. But again, we would love to be in 100% cash situation anyways. 100% equity just means there's no risk. Your business credit score is based very differently. It's based off of your DUNS number and your EIN, not your personal social security number. And this score goes from 1 to 100. Obviously, the higher the better. And it works almost 100% on your payback. If you pay before things are due versus 90 days late, you can see there's a big range there. Most companies who report, that's the biggest issue, is finding companies that will extend your credit but also report. Now, your local parts house that you're using, or a local shop that you maybe have a little street credit with, just because they know you, that's kind of something completely different. But that's also an area of capital that we have. All capital isn't money. And that relational capital that you have with your local, that street credit you can get is sometimes that'll make you or break you. If you get into a jam and you need your local shop to carry you, I need you to fix this truck, but I need the truck so I can go make money so I can pay you for fixing my truck. That street credit goes a long ways. Back to your business credit score, um, where, and it all depends on where you're at in your stage. But if you can get like a $5,000, $10,000 personal credit card, when you get your business credit score up, you're going to be like $30,000 to $50,000. Massively higher amounts. And I mean, it's worth looking into. But again, I wouldn't go down this huge trail of more credit, all the time credit. It's a slippery slope, and before you know it, you're in more trouble than you know how to get out of. Um, but and again, almost everything, especially starting out, they're going to want a personal guarantee. Uh, that changed over time. It didn't used to be like that, but it is now. So, uh, yeah, keep the personal side good too. But again, I'm all about like, get credit when you have to, do whatever you got to do. Let's get into business. Let's make money. Let's, do what you got to do, invest. But I'm also all about let's get ourselves in the most profitable, and I mean, when I say profitable, I mean the safest spot for us. You know, trucking was really good during COVID. A lot of laws relaxed. There was a lot going on that we could do during COVID that we couldn't do before. But most businesses weren't that way. When COVID came through and everyone was shut down, it bankrupted a lot of folks. And the higher your credit, the lower your equity situation, the worse it gets. When catastrophes happen, truck breaks down, you get in a wreck, COVID happens, some unforeseen thing happens, that risk is just, it'll just eat you up. So I'm all about do whatever you got to do in the moment, get going, get by, but let's make long-term strategic plans to just stay in the best place we can get to. We'll go through a couple different strategies to eliminate debt, which I would encourage you all to do. You get a truck, you get rolling. Lots of company drivers, they're used to making, I mean, it all depends, but 500 to 1,500 a week, maybe more. And then you go from that to making $5,000 a week or so, running your own truck, 3 to 5 grand a week, just depending on all the situations you've got. And you think, wow, I'm making 3 times the money. You're really not. You're really not. You need to just pay yourself the same amount you were, as if you had a driver hired. Save the rest, get that debt paid down. Don't go buy shiny new pickups and boats and all the toys yet. Soon, but not now. Not as you're getting started. Dave Ramsey, whether you like him or don't like him, his whole debt reduction system is that all debt is bad and you need to pay it all off as quickly as possible. And he uses what he calls the debt snowball, which is you take your list, you make a list of every debt you have from the smallest to the largest in that order. And then you just start paying them off in that order. And then all the money that you had that were paying on the least, once that's paid off, then you pay the next one off and then the next one. And it's behaviorally, it's actually the most, I don't want to say easy because it's all hard. This debt reduction thing is a big topic and it's not that easy, but it's behaviorally the easiest. It's just designed to get you some quick momentum, some wins behind you, and you think, yeah, here we go. And so I like it for that portion. Now, there's other of you that kind of can't get your mind wrapped around that. Why would I pay off a low interest rate debt before I would pay off a high interest rate? And that's what Bob Kiyosaki's is all about. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you haven't read this book, you should check it out. And his deal is a little more mathematically correct. Again, you just write that same list of all your debts, which you need to have anyways. If you don't know what you owe, have it in a spreadsheet, have it on a napkin. I don't care. Grab an envelope and write it and at least know where you're at all the time. But you make that same list and then you pay them off in order from highest interest rate on down. Not total debt value, but highest interest to lowest. And that's a really good way to do it. I mean, it's fine. As long as you're working on it, you have my support. I'm all about it. Garrett Gunderson's little debt deal, I've actually found to be the one I prefer the most. And it's all about the efficiency of debt. So again, you take your same list of debts and then you just do a little quick calculation on them. Um, you take the loan balance divided by your monthly payment, and that will tell you your cash flow index. So perfect example is you have a car loan, truck loan, whatever, equipment loan for 30K, and your payment is 450 a month versus another type of loan. Doesn't matter what it is. The example is a student loan, but whatever, of $85,000 and the payment is 120. So that equals a CFI of 708, which is incredibly efficient. You can borrow $85,000 for $120 a month. Or would you rather borrow $30,000 for $450 a month? Obviously, borrowing more for less is more efficient. So it's worth doing the calculation. I don't care which guru, which expert you want to go with, but it's worth getting into one of their systems, making a plan, and just getting after it. In the cash flow index, Garrett Gunderson's stuff, you basically ignore the interest rate. It's irrelevant. It's mostly about just the efficiency of the debt. And I really like it. I've used all three in different scenarios, different businesses. I kind of just depend on each situation and how everything's going, you know. And then you would obviously pay them off in the order of the least efficient towards the most efficient. You know, like in this case, we would pay off the car loan way before we would pay off the student loan, just because it's just way more efficient. It's just cheap. Yep. Because of the interest rate, it may not be cheap money, but just as far as monthly cash flow goes, it's the most efficient. So what I want you guys to do, and again, Bruce, I think you were here last week, but it didn't record. So if you did this homework, you don't have to redo it, but I would sure suggest everybody on here know your debt position. And again, I don't care what you choose, but make your list of debts. Even that, just becoming aware of that will open your eyes to a lot of things. Start paying some off, get a little extra cash flow freedom every month. And that'll just compound and build and build and build. If an emergency happens, you've got credit, which is probably not the best. Using credit during a bad situation can make a bad situation a lot worse. However, again, do what you got to do. And once the dust settles, then get after it again and get it paid down, get it paid off, and go from there. So I'm going to take the recording off, and then if you have any questions, we can go into that. And then what I'm going to do today is I'm going to record the one I was going to do this week. So I'm just going to do it right next. If you've got time to stick around, great. If not, if you need to go, that's okay. These will all be uploaded into the playlist that you have access to. So let me pause this. And